"100 hands, reverse the law. Phase 1 set, now put on pause." They claimed the grid could not endure and fed the myth of power pure. The fuel was buried, not the plan. It only waits for votes to stand. From all they stacked the vessels deep. Tea hands ran long, though did not sleep. No shout was sung, no grave was raised. Just softer lights in western bays. A farmer passed through fields unclaimed. No one asked what was his name. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, soul that's clean. Ballots cast, the elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. They wrote it down in 23, then turned the page before the plea. The pause they pitched became a door, a lease renewed without a floor. The mask was spun in policy, but no one asked the river's fee.
Hello. It always takes a minute to get up to speed. My apologies.
Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, soul that's clean. Ballots cast, the elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. Now tell the child in Malta today what steams beneath the concrete base. Dessel's drums into me lie, and NATO carries what we weigh. The wind from Flanders bends its back. The scaffold stands, but none look back.
It's only a few minutes, few seconds left.
Hear the ground, not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, soul that's clean. Ballots casted, elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast.
So, Nuclear Belgium. That's a song by an artist, a musician, a filmmaker, James Lucid on YouTube. And this whale, emaciated killer whale, was found in Belgium a couple of weeks ago. And they're now going to continue with the nuclear day. We're going to phase it out, but now they're going to continue because I guess nothing matters, no species matter, nothing matters, only the nuclear industry, right? Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Dana. You can call in at 709-589-4406 here in Canada. We're back. These are difficult shows for me, so have some patience for me. We're going to go to the big screen, the big shot screens. You can see the peanut head. And when I get to the pictures coming up of that story, you can see the rib cages defined. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable how emaciated that killer whale was. And what was it doing in Belgium? And so I will cover some older stories to try to give you context, because remember, this happened 14 years ago. And so there is a precedence of the species die off post-Fukushima. Puffins are starving to death in incredible numbers this story is really important. It gives you an insight how the academic community works. But before we do that, let's cover the poll. Did Fukushima fuel pool's 36 reactor core meltdown? It was 36 reactor cores at the top of 4 reactor buildings and 8 fuel pools. There could have been a lot more. We don't know for sure. Radiation fallout, because you're limited to how many digits I can put up there, cause a mass species die-off worldwide. And that is the topic of these shows. There's at the bottom of the description of the stories from the day, because you can only put so many stories below. I can't possibly put all the stories in. Is a playlist with over 30 of these videos of die-off, so you can really start to see a pattern. And because this site is only a few years old, he took down my other site with almost 25,000 subscribers when I was out looking for spiders, because apparently that's a crime. In just shy of 3 weeks, they've seen 250 dead birds. These were emaciated. And so scientists believe the actual number of dead puffins are much higher. So they extrapolated from 250 dead puffins that they were able to show starved to death, that were emaciated, that half the puffin population in the North Pacific might be dead, because they found 250. Right? Because it was utter shock that they would see that many dead birds. It was just utter shock. Now remember, in that same year, there was actually, it came out after the actual numbers, was over 1 million common murres showed up emaciated, and they dive 600 feet all day and feed on anchovies and squid and krill and sardines and stuff, small species. At the same time, it was 1.4 million of the Cassini auklets. These are all on their migratory routes, all emaciated. And they said found just 7,500 on one beach of the common murres. But the Cassini auklets makes it even more frightening, because they're microscopic feeders. So 2 different spectrums of the food chain showing up emaciated at the same time, not counting the puffins, right? But when they found 250 extrapolated in the academic community, it was such a shock to the system that half the puffin population in the North Pacific might have starved to death too. The warm water not only killed what they call warm water, this is dead water from Fukushima's contamination. I'll explain all that coming up for you. Rely on for food, but almost all the zooplankton that hurt fish populations meant, not that the zooplankton, that's out of context, my apologies. The birds are simply starving to death, and the zooplankton has disappeared. 60% of the puffin nets that hold eggs produce viable chick fledglings. This year it was 12%, and those who didn't starve to death were notably small. So they're theorizing, they're postulating, they're assuming that it's because of the alleged reports of so-called warm ocean. The ocean, at this time, what was happening, the whole ocean was warmed up because we killed the phytoplankton, the bases of the food chain, the oxygen, and the carbon sequestering chain. We broke the cycle of the ocean. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to go eventually and bring in more headlines to give you more context of how this cover story has been playing out over the years. Again, there's over 30 of these presentations below showing you that pattern of these emaciated species worldwide, the missing insects, etc., etc., etc. 157 whales dead after horrifying mass stranding event in Australia. A pod of 157 whales randomly emerged on an Australian beach. These were false killer whales. There were about 90 that had a chance of survival due to complex conditions. They were killed off. They couldn't free them, so they decided to kill them. All 157 whales have died after washing ashore in Australia. Now, Australia, you're hearing a lot of stories about Australia pilot whales, right? So if you go back, and I'm going to do it for you here in a second, and there's no way you can do these shows in a hurry. These are difficult shows as they are, and so we just take our time and we go through all the detail. I'm very versed in this. We're just going to jump into it, and then we'll slowly screw that up. Just give me a second, because we'll get there. Okay, here we go. This story about belugas, but so just whales itself, right? For whale strikes, since 1975, there was around 292. I think the total number was 1,200 whale strikes. Not all of them would have died by ship strikes, but you'll notice lately they're trying to blame the die-off on ship strikes. You'll hear it all the time, but it's simply not true. The whales are emaciated. Okay. There we go. We're up and running. Once we get moving here, we'll be okay. We move fairly quick. It's a complicated story, no matter how you look at this, right? Let's take you through it. We still haven't gotten to the pilot. The pilot whales in the 2015, 2017 were emaciated. Empty stomachs, and they were finding different groups of them. They had, so we'll go backwards for a few minutes here. 2017, 2019 mink whale, unusual mortality event. North Atlantic right whale, unusual mortality event. Killer whales showing up starving to death. We believe it's not necessarily starving to death. There was food at this time and still is, per se. Not like it used to be pre-Fukushima. But we have a lot of documentation suggesting within a decade the killer whales would, because they're the apex predator and they bioaccumulate radiation fairly quick because of the type of many different species they eat, would have at least 1,000 anthropogenic man-made atoms of cesium-137 per kilogram. Which basically they were producing so much white blood cells they couldn't uptake any nutrition. They were like a chemotherapy radiation victim in the hospital. It kills all their cells. Alaska seabird die-off continues 2018. Emaciated and starved. You're talking about millions of birds showing up emaciated. This is unprecedented. Same thing with, so they're trying to blame, and these medias, it's a very tricky thing what's going on with the nuclear industry. They basically control or have incredible influence over almost all the media that's you'll see in your search engines worldwide. So now I was up doing research expeditions. I'll show you some of that stuff coming up later. These bears are grizzly bears, and they're emaciated. They eat everything. They eat 200,000 berries a day, for instance. They don't just eat salmon. They eat elk, and they eat other bear. They eat deer. They eat moose. They're not limited to salmon. So to suggest because the salmon didn't show up that the bears are bearing the brunt of it is not true. They have the same attributes. They're emaciated because the berries incredibly aggregating radiation isotopes. So they got leukemia basically. Grizzly bears don't starve to death. Most of their diet is roots and berries and stuff like this, right? They're not dependent on the salmon. They can eat elk and deer, and they can eat moose, and there's plenty of it. There was plenty of it up there, right? They eat tips of trees and stuff like that. Mysterious mass death of Alaska seabirds baffles scientists 2016. Now that's one puffin story I showed you earlier. Tens of thousands of dead birds washing up on the beaches. They weren't all of a species. There was many different species, but we covered this extensively in 2016. And when I was out doing research expeditions for 4 to 5 months at a time on the ocean during this period. By the way, I was out there when this story came out. We aggregated it after. Appears to have starved to death. That was over 1 million common murres. And there were, at the same time, 1.4 million Cassini auculates I was talking about earlier. We know they're starving. The stomachs are empty. We'll get through this legacy headlines. We haven't got too many of these. Unprecedented number of whale carcasses washing up on the west coast. This was the culvert beak whales. There was over 1,000 of them showed up all along Europe's coastline, United Kingdom area and stuff like this. In different stages of decomposition. This was just one of the stories. This was 81 of them in just one stretch. And you can see that where they're showing up, 12 at the top, 2 below it, 15 at another place. They were emaciated in different stages of decomposition. So the estimated was 10,000 culvert beak whales had died. Here's the headline I was talking about earlier. Researchers predict West Coast killer whales will exceed 1,000 atoms a kilogram of radioactive cesium. Concerned about humans. Killer whales sick, dying, very sick, emaciated. And we're going to get to that story from Belgium coming up. 20,000 birds just starved to death off the Dutch coast. Nobody knows why. Add krill mussels to the unusual mortality event. 10 sperm whales dying at the one time. These were emaciated, peanut heads. You go look up those stories at that time, you'll see that. Whales won't stop killing themselves in New Zealand. 400 whales beached themselves. Now in 2015, 16, 17, when he reported on these polar whales, they were emaciated. They had empty stomachs. And there was different groups showing up, and they would refer to the other groups as being emaciated and empty stomachs too. But we have every species with the same attribute doing this. In 2015, there was over 300 fin whales washed up in Ecuador area. I can't remember the exact area. 2016 humpback whale unusual mortality event. That's over 10,000 now. The majority of these were emaciated. The industry was trying to blame it on ship strikes. When you read a lot of the stories, they'll talk about ship strikes. But when you look at, because we cover it, and like you said, there's a playlist below where on just this particular site, I have over 30 of these stories of emaciated animals in post-Fukushima. North Atlantic right whale unusual mortality event. The gray whale is over 10,350 that they acknowledge. This will make sense as we get through. Manatees are under unusual mortality events. 30 whales found dead at the one time in Alaska, unusual mortality event. Starvation causes the mass bird die-off. And great shearwaters were the primary casualty, but it was seagulls, ducks, terns, cormorants, many other species showing up emaciated at the same time. And no highly pathogenic avian influenza was found. And for, all the way up until 2018, 19 or so, it was never mentioned, avian influenza. the industry was aware. But you've seen a change where they try to blame the die-offs currently on avian influenza, which is backfired on another time. From the state label of dead birds, they examine as emaciated. So this was in 2022 where this is when you really see the push for the bird flu. But there's one city right in the middle of avian influenza on one side, avian influenza on the other side of their county. They done their own test. They didn't send, everybody else sent it to the government laboratory. They done their own test. Their findings were all the species were emaciated. They died of starvation, not avian influenza. They died, the large number of dead birds, different species, to have died from starvation. It just wasn't one species. This is such an important story. And they also made sure and state that no avian influenza was found. And this wasn't mentioned pre-2018-19 or so. It was never mentioned. They died of starvation. The food chain is broken because of Japan's radioactive fallout. Pulley confirmed that the state labeled the dead birds they examined as emaciated. All of them were emaciated, and the consensus is they died of starvation. That was 2022, right when the what species was it? Was the ones that fly up a couple of thousand feet and then dive down? I can't even remember. That's crazy. That was down here. We were doing research expeditions because we had here on the East Coast at that time a die-off of common murres, which dive 600 feet all day. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. It's easy for them. If they starved to death, we're in real trouble, and they did. And at the same time, we're what they call dove kites. And so you had the common murres, over 1 million of them, and the dove kites, and they were clearly emaciated. We went down and tried to do the best we could in a snowstorm, in an ice storm. It was crazy. But we were able to show their story. Their version of the story wasn't true. And I was right in the middle of the whole die-off, right? They were coming in every day into the communities and picking up the carcasses. The government was. Fisheries and Oceans and Forestry. And explosions of sea lion deaths in Peru among the deadly flu outbreak. So when they show you these pictures, these are emaciated sea lions. This is not bird flu. Bird flu doesn't cause this, especially sea lions, which typically around 12, 14, 1,800 pounds. This thing is emaciated. It weighs less than he does. And then they show you other pictures. Look, so what they were trying to do was conflate the emaciated animals with bird flu. And it was around 3,500 sea lions. It wasn't bird flu. They died of starvation. But they were blaming it on. See, and they didn't come out and say it amid the deadly bird flu outbreak. But by showing you these pictures of the emaciated sea lions, very graphic stuff, but when you compare it that a sea lion should be like bigger and larger, way larger than they are, it could easily be 12, 14, 1,800 pounds. So wild birds like ducks, seagulls, geese, hawks, owls, they were trying to blame at this was that moment where they were trying to blame the bird flu, saying it was jumping the species. Remember, the bird flu has been around for millions of generations of each of the species. But because you compromised your immune system with so much radioactive fallout, yeah, the flu can take them out. But it wasn't the primary cause was a compromised immune system by massive radioactive fallout. And so we covered all of this as was happening: bears, foxes, bobcats, raccoons, deer, dolphins, and a lot of these were babies. They would find them in the middle of nowhere communities and would take them in and test them for flu. Why would you do that? You know, animals die naturally all the time, right? But why would you all of a sudden during this one period test everything? And so they were trying to conflate it. And we used to say, oh yeah, well all the saber-toothed tigers died of bird flu, right? All the trees are dying of bird flu. The rocks are not having any more babies because of bird flu. Climate change likely played a role in 40% drop of Pacific gray whale. This was 10,300. The reason they're saying is because they starved to death. Oh, food scarcity. No, they starved to death is what happened. So you had a predictable mass species die off post-Fukushima because of the radioactive fallout. Let me just touch that for 1 second. We're almost through the legacy headlines, then we'll get back to the recent headlines. I have to frame the narrative so people can appreciate, in case they've never been here, the actual reality of why the species are dying off. So this was a radioactive plume. Think of it as an invisible snowstorm. 468 hours is 19 and a half days, 19.5 days of radioactive fallout covering the entire planet. It broke the food chain, see? 8 dead sperm whales found on a German beach, clearly emaciated on top of that. 6 sperm whales die in a rare mass beaching in Australia. 2 more sperm whales wash up in a... This is unprecedented, and you can see the peanut head, eh? Let's keep going. Here's what I was talking about earlier. Let's see if I was right. 337 whales in the largest die-off ever recorded. The bluish-gray whales can grow 64 feet. That was a sin whale, SEI. These are exceptional. The 2 whales found floating off New York coast. These are blunt force trauma. But the reality of it is, there's a total of around 1,200 whales died since 1974 of boat strikes. So they're getting hit because they're bloated and they're floating around, and they're in an area where no one expects anything to be floating around. Did a marine heat wave cause 7,000 humpback whales to starve to death? This was on top of an unusual mortality event. So, but they're asking a question, they're not stating a fact. Because they don't want to go the other direction, which is what we talk about. Have scientists discovered 7,000 humpback whales deaths by using AI? This was on top of an unusual mortality event. All right, here we go. Now we're back to the recent headlines. Mass whale stranding in Australia's Tasmania, 67 dead, and they're going to euthanize, kill the 90 survivors, and they did. The safety of both the animals and staff were top priority. Really? We have decided that killing the animals was necessary for their welfare. That's what they do every time, though, isn't it? They noted that the remote location made rescue operations equipment deployment difficult. We've seen similar stuff during all the nuclear testing, but if you look pre-nuclear industry, well, there was huge populations pre-nuclear industry, so yeah, you would see some of it, but not in they weren't emaciated. Climbing whale death sparks question over offshore wind. So the whales are emaciated, but you're going to blame it on offshore wind? This is the nuclear industry clearly with their hand in this narrative, right? Since the unusual mortality event began in 2016 is still ongoing. In 2016, 244 dead humpback whales were found on the Atlantic coast between Maine and Florida. This is symmetrical through the North American continent, though. And the majority of these were emaciated. We've covered the majority of them, by the way. We are going to look externally over the whole body and see if there's any abnormalities, any wounds. And so they're very fixated, you'll notice if you read most of the stories, on looking for so-called ship strikes, human intervention or something, right? And the whale could be incredibly emaciated, but they're still going to look and see if they can find anything to try to blame it on a ship. But pre-Fukushima, the total number of ship strikes was around 1,200 worldwide since 1974 on a worldwide database. Prior to 2016, we either had no whale strandings whatsoever, or we had one. Now you can't keep up with the whale strandings. And it's not just whales; it's all the other species. The main cause of death we have seen are vessel strikes and entanglement and infectious diseases, Callahan said. Many blame the deaths on another phenomenon, wind turbine. So refusing to acknowledge, this is the standard with this with the media, but as you'll notice, when you see the documentation, that's when you really start to appreciate it. Over 1,000 sea lions, dolphins are getting sick and dying as the toxic bloom off the California coast expands. Now, like, even when I was young, we would see these algae blooms, right? They really do happen, and we've seen it. I've seen it on the Atlantic Ocean and in the Pacific Ocean. It happens, right? But what we're seeing post-Fukushima is these blooms don't even go away. They're there almost the entire year. They might go away for a couple of months, and then they're there because we destroyed the balance of the ecosystem. See, normally a glass of ocean water, just a glass of ocean water, would have 1 billion creatures into it. Now it doesn't have any. It would have phytoplankton, of course. 75 to 100 million of the glass of water species out of 1 billion would be the phytoplankton, the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. And then the other 900 million creatures in a glass of water, of ocean water, would be all the eggs and larvae and species of all the species, right? The milk, the sperm, and everything else. Now it's literally a sterile glass of water. So it's the perfect environment for algae, apparently. Dead whale washes, and California, of course, without none of these so-called domoic acid toxic blooms, we were seeing just hundreds of thousands of emaciated seals and sea lions and elephant seals and stuff like that. Dead whale washes up the Delaware River. This is 2025. Where the rest of the show, I'll be bringing in a little bit more supporting documentation, but the rest of the show is all recent headlines the last couple of months. Dead whale washes up in the Delaware River near the Delaware Memorial Bridge. A few years ago, in a matter of 3 weeks, we covered 3 separate stories of whales that have swam way up freshwater rivers, which is just never heard of pre-Fukushima. One of them here in Canada, where they went all the way to Montreal. The humpback whale had went all the way to Montreal. It was emaciated, according to the pictures they were shown. And so that means you got to go all the way up to St. Lawrence here in Canada, way up. No one's ever seen a whale in Montreal, ever. It's unheard of. And here was this, at the same time, there was 2 more whales. Dead whale washes up in the Delaware River by the Memorial Bridge. Now, I will cover, because I do grab kind of all the stories that I'm interested in, this type of topic, right? And working with other agencies to move the whale so it can be examined. It's a juvenile fin whale appearing to be between 35 and 40 feet long, way up a freshwater river. Humpback whales die after washing up on the Delaware seashore. And no visible ship strikes or entanglement issues. And this was a common theme we've seen for the last 3/4 of a decade or so, where they would look at that before they look at anything else. Instead of whales die all the time, Dana. So instead of that kind of attitude, they're scrutinizing it, looking for whale strikes so they can artificially inflate it. And it doesn't have to have it. It could happen post-mortem. There has been concern about the offshore wind projects causing harm to sea life, particularly whales. How is a windmill going to hurt a whale? Whales don't fly. So these people are shit for brains. These are scumbags, right? U.S. Wind sent a statement to clarify the project is not construction yet, and there's no construction taking place for these projects at any time. So why are you blaming it on the windmills? They were just doing some survey. Stranded humpback whale is a malnourished, emaciated juvenile. So another emaciated. And there's a lot of these stories you're going to see. The animal was relatively thin. Well, first off, like for a whale to go from 12 inches of blubber to a couple of inches is a long journey. It's several months for it to lose that kind of inventory. A helicopter pilot discovered another whale. The dead animal was lying on the beach of a non-inhabited bird sanctuary, which are pretty well abandoned post-Fukushima now. Malnourished juvenile. They could have took a wrong turn on their migration. Listen, they've been doing this for millions of generations. They're not conscious of their migrations. That's the consensus. This is built into them. It's hardwired into them, right into their soul. So to suggest they took a wrong turn, they took a wrong turn because the ocean is sterile. Like a glass of water, instead of having a billion creatures, aka the soup of life, if you took 100 tons of seawater pre-nuclear industry to a planet with fresh water and it was able to survive in that water, you would start up an entire ecosystem because a glass of water would have 1 billion creatures into it. Now it has nothing. Post-Fukushima. Only the harbor porpoise, which is 1.5 meters long, is native to the area. The population of harbor porpoise in the German North Sea has declined significantly in recent years. Since 2009, the population decreased by almost 4% each year, from 49,000 to 23,000, according to a study in 2021. Fukushima happened in 2011. So it's easy to go back a couple of years rather than... Because if you put 2011 there, people like me are going to seize up on it, right? The Wadden Sea is the largest unbroken system of intertidal sand mudflats in the world. Extending along the coast of Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, it's rich in species adapted to demanding environmental conditions and listed on degenerate, disgusting, parasitic UN World Heritage. I despise this unelected, sadistic, monstrous organization, UN. Harbor porpoise. As 26,000 died. 26,000 did. Post-Fukushima. Out of around 50,000. Since Fukushima, right? Bronze whale found dead in Bangpoo. They just found another one on Vancouver Island, right? Just less than a week ago. Which got up and has never been found there before, by the way. The cause of his death was assumed to be the impact of being struck by a ship during feeding time. The advisor of the Department of Marine and Coastal Resources. It's assumed, is it? Really? Really? It's assumed. Oh, must have been. Whales don't die. It got to be a ship strike, Dana. Oh, okay. When'd you figure that out? Post-Fukushima? It's assumed. Post-Fukushima that the whale died of ship strike because that's what they're told to assume. Whales don't die naturally, do they? No, it's assumed it died of a ship strike because they live to be 1 billion years old, Dana. Everybody knows that. You see the irony and the arrogance and the hubris of these people? The cause of death was only an assumption. A detailed necropsy would be performed, as the degenerate piece of shit said. It was assumed. Well, when you look at it, look at the tail, that's emaciated. That's not up for debate. Dead beak whale found, they found over 1,000 beak whales off Europe, where they're not even supposed to be, right on the coastlines, in different stages of decomposition, which means at least 10,000 died because you only find maybe, at best, 10%. Cause of death remains unknown. No, it's assumed it was struck by a friggin' ship, Dana. Oh, okay. I'm glad you brought that up. Hang on. Let me put that in my pile of piece of shits on Earth. It's assumed that it died. It's assumed. Should put that over there too, I suppose. I get really annoyed of these scumbags. I apologize. Dolphin found stranded on a riverbank miles from the ocean in Belgium. And that's the same. We'll get to that killer whale coming up in a little tiny bit. We're not too far away. Well, we are actually, I would imagine, because I still got, because I can see how much I got left, right? Like, you know, when you're reading a story, you can see the marker on this side as you're scrolling down. I'm still way up in the air here. We'll get there. Dolphin found stranded on a riverbank miles from the ocean in Belgium. And that picture I started to show off with, we'll get to that story. That was a horrific. You'll see the pictures coming up. It's just horrific emaciation of that killer whale. A rare appearance. Yeah, it's a rare appearance as it is, but miles from the ocean is even rarer. A rare dolphin. It's an exceptional find, they label it as. In a surprising twist, the news of the stranded dolphin led a local ferryman to contact the Institute of National Sciences, telling them he recorded footage of a dolphin in the river on January the 31st. They live in the open ocean. As such, they are not adapted to living in rivers. It's not clear why this individual swam up there. He was starving to death. That's the only reason. Look at the narwhals, eh? Isn't that amazing? We have them here, right? They're amazing creatures. They're the unicorns of the ocean, right? And it was actually stabbing. So this was another story, but I butchered the headline. It's probably down below, though. Which are related to the beluga found here and throughout other parts of Canada, Greenland, Alaska, and Russia. We have a lot down here. Well, we had. Swimming in the clear coastal waters. And again, I'm doing the show early. I was out under the truck for 5 hours in -2 degree temperatures. I started this morning. Determined to get the ball joints done. I never got a single one accomplished, man. I might order in a plasma cutter. I gave it my best, though, so now I know what I'm up against, right? I'm going to change just digress for a second. I'm going to change all the suspension under my vehicle because I can't afford a new one, right? So just change out the entire suspension. We got everything. I thought I did. I guess I need a plasma cutter because I was looking at the only way I'm going to get some of that apart is I'm going to have to grind it off, and I just don't have what it takes, eh? So plasma cutters are dirt cheap now, a couple of $100. So I'm going to sleep on it first, but I'm probably going to order it because I need it anyway. There's something in there. I might have to go in. Let's see if I got it. I might have got it. I did. Okay, let's keep going here. Yeah, 5 hours, a little over 5 hours. I started at 10 to 8 a.m. this morning, and I came back in the house sometime after 1 p.m. I'm not sure what time exactly, because by the time I cleaned up and looked at the clock, it was 1:30. So quarter after 1 or something. Over 5 hours. It was kind of like, it was okay. And I stopped for half an hour sitting there and having a cup of tea. And when I went to stand up, I couldn't move, man. Everything was broken. I was like, oh, shit. That's why we're doing the show early tonight, because if I stop, I'm not gonna wake up for hours. Okay, let's keep going. My apologies. The headline of this story should be below. I smurfed up. Sometimes when you're trying to save this information, yeah. In the video, 7 narwhals can be seen speeding toward Arctic char, a relative of the salmon, and striking them with their tusk. And that was this picture right here. You can see it a bit, probably not. But anyway, there is Arctic char there. I can kind of see it on my screen. I don't know about your guys' screen. They're known to hunt in the deep water using suction in their mouth to capture squid, cod, and shrimp. Didn't know that. Are we starting to see them maybe feed on other types of fish closer to the surface? Right, so their natural food is not there. The squid, as we know, is such a keystone species, right? So are the shrimp. So now they're starting to notice they're feeding on different species they've never seen them feed on before. They aren't the only predators present. The gulls, an Arctic species of seagulls, can be seen snatching fish that the marine mammals were pursuing, substantially reducing their success rate. So if a gull taking a fish away from a whale is competition, then there's not many species left, and they're feeding on other species they normally don't eat. What does that tell us, I wonder? Expect to see headlines of emaciated narwhals in the near future. If males are figuring out a new way to hunt prey, why would they do that when they have millions of generations? Why would they change their tactic all of a sudden? Because their main species is not there no more. The first ever evidence of a narwhal engaging in potentially playful behavior, following a char and gently touching it with its tusk, because it generally doesn't eat char. It's not playing with him. It's wondering what it is. Can it eat it? Will likely display more novel behavioral if they grapple with shifting environmental conditions related to climate change. This person is a disgusting, degenerate piece of shit. Excuse me, I'm invested in the species. I want to see them survive, right? And the nuclear industry now has compromised every species, including you and your loved ones and your children and everybody else's children. Dead seals and dolphins are washing up in LA beaches after the wildfire. There's no way this isn't linked to toxic runoff from the fires earlier this year. Why? Because Fukushima didn't happen. Species have been dying post-Fukushima at an extraordinary rate. So it's got to be the fire? Really? I've seen forest fires many times. I've never seen mass die off of species after forest fires. Your media is disgusting, eh? That when you look at the tail, right? Look at the tail. You can see the tail there. That's emaciated. If you had a clear picture of the head, I'm pretty sure you would see. Well, you can kind of see the peanut head there, right? Which is indicative. Well, you can clearly see the defining. But that tail is your typical shit. That animal's emaciated when you see that. Tails are not supposed to be flat, right? It's not the best picture, but we have educated eyes for this stuff, per se. Warner points to worsening environmental conditionings, including a sharp rise in toxic algae bloom, because you don't have 1 billion creatures per glass of water anymore in the ocean. So the toxic bloom has no problem filling in that real estate, because it's normally couldn't exist in that real estate because 1 billion creatures would consume it, right? We used to see these blooms every 3 to 7 years, but now we've had 4 in a row. And like I said, when I was young, we have seen toxic blooms, right? But they weren't everywhere. They were just in these oxygen-starved areas. Weather abnormalities cannot explain insect decline. Here, way to go, nature. That doesn't mean the story is going to be a good story. Weather abnormalities. Really, because we never had bad weather until post-nuclear industry, right? Like, why would you try to blame weather on killing off the insects, see? So they created this controversy where a paper got written to debunk that assertion, right? Because the industry is kooky. The nuclear industry, not only are they just revolting, disgusting parasites, they're kooky. Nuclear Belgium. Da, da, da. Insects are disappearing. Bad weather, Dana. Come here, I'll give you howls the head off your shoulders. Imagine someone come out and tell me it's because of the weather. Hang on here, I'll make some noise. Or no noise, rather. No, the insects all died because we had a thunderstorm, Dana. Oh, okay, thank you. That'll make me sleep better. Let me go backwards for 1 second. Like whoever wrote that, or even suggested that the insects died because of bad weather, this one right here, I really want to slap them, eh? Like I don't believe in slapping, hurting people, but I can't consider whoever came up, not that study in particular, but the other study where they had to come out and debunk it. No, the insects are disappearing because bad weather, Dana. Oh, okay. I'm going to call the police on you because you got a car. I can't see how you can drive a car and make a statement like that at the same time. 560. You hear that in the comments section, 560? So if I can't find my way back, somebody remember to put that in the comments section if I ask. There we go. Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself because I got to assume that not everybody understands why I say some of the things I say. So I've done 6 years hardcore, 4 to 5 months a year without going home on the ocean of research expeditions. Okay, I'm very well known, by the way, for all of this stuff. But you might not know me, and you might think, oh, he's pretty arrogant, right, the stuff he's saying. But I'm not. I'm talking from regrettable experience is the best way to put it. I regret it. I don't regret doing it. I just, once you go through what I went through, you can never erase that, see, out of your memory. So you got, don't try this at home, folks. So you got a drone in the air and you got a drone in the water, and it's a long story. This is my typical day. This is what a typical day for me looks like on the research expeditions. Like people see the underwater drones and they think everything is cool and fun. It's not, man. It's brutal. That's the end of the day. And then try doing the maintenance on these two boats. Think about just trying to build this whole operation. Just think about, like, every facet that you see in there was an enormous amount of sacrifices just to get this operation up and running. And then to go out on the ocean after Fukushima, because like Fukushima happened, okay? Pretending it didn't happen. You're talking about 36 reactor cores. So the French government done a study of 1 million times normal radiation fallout from Japan of cesium-137. It was 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels, which means it could have been 20, 30 or more million cesium-137, which pulses energy 600 feet for each atom every second for 300 years. It can't just be cesium, by the way. But this was a study, an increase. Levels increased. This is a study. This is not a projection. This is levels increased 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels. So this was the model. This one is, I think, is based on 31 days. And you're at day 10. I'm going to tell you when you're at day 20. You're at day 20 coming up And right here, that's day 20. So you got the entire planet covered with millions and millions of atoms per cubic meter of air of cesium-137. This is the French government. This is a study. You can't just have cesium-137. That's going to be saturated. And by the way, the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod is not cesium. And cesium is brutal. It pulses energy 600 feet every second. But the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel, and imagine, so all the birds and insects are getting full body x-rays on top of this, right? So it's impossible for them to have normal fledglings or normal eggs. The eggs are going to be compromised. This is just 31 days of cesium-137. The biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium. So sailboat tows the Zodiac. The Zodiac, the other little Zodiac is normally on the roof, right? And so when I get up there, the sailboat gets tied onto a tree, and then the anchors are out too, right? And that way it doesn't swing all the time. And then the big boat will tow the little boat, because I can go a whole week on 5 gallons versus 1 hour on 12 gallons, right? But sometimes you can only do the research in the big boat because you're in a dangerous coastline. So the species to your left, and this is why you're seeing all the emaciated birds, because not only is the migratory species living, but there's nothing left on the coastline. These are my pictures on the right-hand side. And so I went back for 5 more years after this first year to see if the species started to recover. The species didn't recover to your left. And so to your left, those species, right, see all of these species to your left? The eggs and sperms and milk from all of these species would make up the billion creatures in the billion creatures in a glass of water. But, you know, I could never land my Zodiac on the beaches normally, because you would punch a hole in it with the sea urchins. See? You can never get close enough to the beach with a with a soft bottom Zodiac like I had there. And the starfish, like trying to go to high tide line to put a beach line up, you wouldn't do it. You wait till the tide is high and going in your boat, because you know you'll be walking all of these species. You break your arms, you break your legs. It's not unusual for people to hurt themselves, severely hurt themselves, and that the rocks would normally be also covered in I can't even remember the name. And so the species to your left, for instance, you know, there was around 70 species of sponges in different vibrant colors. There was almost 80 species of starfish, and each of species were in different vibrant colors. There was 76 species of sea anemones. Each species came in different vibrant colors. There was all these shellfish. There was razorback clams and little necks and manila clams. There was oysters and scallops. There was abalone. There was gooey ducks. There was razorback. There was there was all different types of snails. There was all of these incredible diversity. There was 480 species of worms. There was 700 algae. In the 700 algae, there was 5,500 invertebrates without the backbones. There was just this absurd, incredible, wonderful, amazing diversity. And after Fukushima, it disappeared, because Fukushima, this was a Neptune. I showed you the cesium-137 study, not projection, but study. This is a study on Neptunium-239 in 20 days to your left. So over there is 20 days. That's 21 days. Decays to plutonium-239 after 2.5 days. And there's also another study on the plutonium-239 based on 20 days. And I kind of skipped past what we were talking about earlier. And I showed you the cesium plume was a massive plume, covered the whole planet in 20 days, right? But the curium isotopes is the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rod, not plutonium, not neptunium, not cesium, not the other isotopes that we have studies on. And curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Plutonium killed all the animals in all the experiments. And so I collect up this information, and I also went out and done all these research expeditions for 6 years. And once we went out and seen the species to your left had disappeared, didn't recover, were gone. They were there in 2011. Now they're gone post Fukushima. So we went out for 5 more years to see if the species to your left recovered. Okay, let's get back to the story here, I guess. Zoe. I still find it hard to see Zoe, eh? I got to put a picture of her on my wall, I think. That's the only way I'm going to get over it. And what was the number? Oh my God. That's the picture, but let me scroll down. I can't remember. Let me go backwards for 1 second. So you had the crabs, the snow crabs, 10 billion snow crabs vanished. This was 4 times the entire harvest since 1972. Right, this was the crash of the industry. That was the end of the industry. Just bear with me. I still got to bring up that pilot whale. We'll get to that. What was the number? Anybody write that down in the comment section? 560. Hi, Colette. Bear with me. 560. Thank you, Colette. Hi, Miles. Let's keep going here. $560. We're almost here. So those were the research. There were 6 years of those research expeditions for 4 to 5 months, or sometimes multiple expeditions a year. In desperation. 560 was right here. That's it. All right, here we go again. Just let me bring up the poll here. Did Fukushima fuel pools, 36 reactor cores meltdowns, radioactive fallout cause a mass species die-off worldwide? Yes. The right answer is yes. Here we go. Let's keep going. Today's headlines. Back to today's headlines. Not today, but this recent headlines. Insects are disappearing. So trying to blame the disappearing of the insects on weather is absurd. But that's how crazy the industry actually is, right? Yeah. Hi, Miles. Essential oil, grab a spray bottle. Oh, this is about making your own. A garlic spray. Make a simple garlic water mixture to ward off mosquito bites. This is different ways. Instead of using toxic chemicals to get rid of any insects that are going to be a problem for you, there's other ways. Now, I had a stung on my eyelid. It's been bothering me for many days. And, not many days, but a couple of days. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Take garlic. So what I have 2 different types of garlic. I have bottled garlic, so it's full of oil. And so you just take a Q-tip and stick it in there and rub it on your eyelid. And that'll get rid of the infection, right? Excellent. You might want to do it like 3 times in one day. I screwed up and only done it once, and it got rid of it for 4 or 5 days, and then it came back, and now I'm applying it again, right? I'll get rid of it this time. It's not back per se, but you can start to feel it. Garlic's really good for that. Give me a moment, we're almost there. Alrighty, here we go. If all of Earth's insects, let me check everything. If all of Earth's insects suddenly disappeared, here's what would happen. Well, it's not sudden, but it takes about a decade or two after Fukushima, they'll all be gone. Most of them are gone now. When's the last time people cleaned insects on their windscreen? You are finding some. Where I'm to currently, though, I found more insects than I did on the West Coast last summer, which kind of was pretty, not like a lot or nothing, right? Despite you won't find the spider webs in the woods. You'll find them on your house, on your vehicles, your garbage cans. Is that a stink bug? What we call a stink bug, rather. What would happen if insects disappeared? Would lack all vitality and diversity and would soon spiral into a crushing boredom. With the vast biomass in the middle, there would be nothing to eat for those above. No insect-eating birds, fish, mammals. With a drastic knock-on effect higher up the food chain. This is what we're seeing now. For hundreds of millions of years, insects have been the clogs that run the planet, providing what is in the technical jargon are called ecological services. Simply, they keep nature in balance. They're the biota. They break down the foliage. They break down the litter in the forest. And because one of the manifestations of these is you're going to see flash floods and massive forest fires because your foliage and litter is not breaking down, and you don't have the biota anymore, right? So that you don't have the fungus, the bacteria, which means the roots can't work properly, and so you're not drawing water anymore. So now when the ants' nests are still there, but they're empty. And so now when you have rainfall, the rain doesn't soak into the earth because you don't have the biota. Right? And they don't put that in this story, obviously, right? But that's what we can quantify through the research expeditions also. We didn't just do ocean researches, right? I need a new outboard motor to continue the research. You're talking a lot of money, $14,000-15,000 for a decent motor. By rights, I need twin 70s is what I need. That's what it'd still be around $14,000-15,000, and that way, if one motor goes down, you got another motor to get you home, right? And that's what I should have done a number of years ago. And of course, I have a huge operation, not a big operation. It's a huge operation. I have an absurd amount of equipment. Just in case I lost all funding, I can still continue to research. But the outboard motor was one of the things that I didn't manage to replace. And last year I wasn't able to do any research at all. I mean, that motor's been to Alaska 6 times. 6 different years. It was bound to wear out at some point, right? But no Caterpillar. I mean, it was running pretty rough the last couple of years, right? It's been used on the Atlantic Ocean for quite a few years too. So bless its heart, though, man. It got us through some pretty wild times. I got no complaints. I got nothing but love for that motor. That motor stood the test of time with us. With no caterpillars keeping plant growth in check, a few vigorous weeds will soon overwhelm the world, overshadowing and squeezing out anything more delicate. There are scavengers recycling them. Dwindling nutrients would be permanently locked up in the massed leaf litter, dead trees and logs that didn't break down. But it would be the absence of the best known insect behavior, flower visitors, that would spell the worst. Let me check and make sure. Flower visiting species, pollinators, that would spell the worst disaster for the world. Without pollination, most flowering plants would not seed. And more importantly for humans, set fruit. So no seeds, no fruit, guess what happens? No more beans, figs, strawberries, apples, pears, peaches would be things of the past. And things are already nearing a breaking point post-Fukushima. The vast monocultural orchards of Southern California are only kept in harvest by artificial transport of millions of domesticated honeybees to pollinate the industrial swaths of trees. So if they didn't have artificial pollinators, not artificial, but transported pollinators, then the fruit, and California is the breadbasket of North America for many, right? Domesticated honeybees pollinate the industrial swaths of trees, wallflowers, with their often very specialized individual pollinators, which soon fade away. So plant diversity would shrivel up too. Open source on the species. That should have been... More than 50 sick and adult sea lions have been found on beaches in Southern California, indicating they ingested food poisoning by a toxic algae bloom off Malibu. Well, that's not what food poisoning normally does, is cause these open sores. That open sore is an old sore, and most of the hair is missing off his poor little body. Domoic acid is considered an abnormality that time of the year. And for quite a few years, they were trying to blame the die-offs of all the mass species, millions of seabirds dying, on domoic acid. And so you have to follow that for many months or years sometimes before the research is released of what actually killed them. And every single time it wasn't domoic acid. And so they're still putting that out there. Like bird flu is real because their immune systems are compromised through bioaccumulation of radiation. Their body is under siege with white blood cells. These blooms should not be happening on top of that, which is 100% correct. I don't know what's going on in the ocean. Well, we do. We're not in denial. Lethargic, dehydration, vomiting. And these are typical radiation sicknesses. But that's not normal. We never seen that one before. That's the first time we've seen that one. Those big open sores like that. The center has taken in at least 17 live animals, responding to rescue requests where animals were near death on the beaches. All but 2 are pregnant. So they're not able to sustain the extra nutrition during pregnancy. Affected sea lions has also been found in the Pacific. Everywhere. 4 years in a row, the domoic acid that shouldn't be there, only once every 3, 4, 7 years. Over 1,000 sea lions, dolphins are getting sick and dying as toxic bloom off California. But what I can bring up, I got a whole folder here on sea lion die-offs, and domoic acid and toxic blooms weren't part of that equation. They died of starvation. But because their immune systems are compromised by radioactive fallout, they're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses, and like an animal is a lot like a human. So the radioactive radiation they use on humans in the hospital destroy their health, right? It kills all their cells and everything else. Radiation in the ecosystem does the same thing to the species. So they have leukemia because they're producing more white blood cells than red blood cells, because the radiation will attack, or your white blood cells are a response to anthropogenic man-made isotopes sequestered in your body, your muscles, your organs, your bones, or the animals and everything else, right? So the body attacks the source every second, tries to build a sarcophagus around it, we call it a tumor, but at the same time, the radiations in your body explodes every second, almost at the speed of light, and that's wrecking chromosomes and DNA and cells, etc., etc. Your body's going to try to repair that every second. It can't do it. So eventually it gets overwhelmed. See? It's trying to attack the source, and it's trying to repair the damage every second that's created. It can't do it. So it's producing so much white blood cells, you're displacing for every white blood cell, you're displacing your red blood cell. Red blood cells carries oxygen, nutrition, and all the species in the humans' bodies, right? So you can kind of extrapolate on your own the significance of that statement. More than 1,000 reported sick or dead animals, including more than 100 dolphins. I'm not saying that, this stuff is really happening. these plumes, they're existing because the ocean is sterile, right? Instead of having a billion creatures in a glass of water, you don't have anything. So it's that real estate is now up for grabs, and algae, which loves stale water. Like if you put water somewhere, it's not going to get turned into algae, right? But if you leave it there for long enough, then the algae will show up because the oxygen and everything else has gone out of the water. Right, the little microscopic creatures that live in that water, that keeps the water. Costing the center $250,000 it didn't have budgeted. What makes it unique is there's no evidence of toxin close to shore, and it's uncommon for dolphins to be involved. So there's no evidence of the toxin being close to shore, and the dolphins shouldn't be part of the equation. They breathe air, right? Last year, at least 400 sea lions were sickened by a bloom off Santa Barbara, but it did not affect the dolphins. That bloom appeared to be closer to shore. Millions of fish killed this winter at Bruce Power nuclear plant here in Canada, Ontario, Canada, which in the Great Lakes is the third biggest freshwater aquifer on the entire planet. Millions of fish killed at Bruce Power. In a statement, the Sagi Ojibwe Nations, the native community in Ontario, this event raises concerns about the artificial environment for aquatic life in the Bruce site, which is a nuclear power plant. I mean, they're boiling 1 million gallons per reactor a minute, and that goes out into the Great Lakes. They acknowledge a large number of fish have died after getting trapped in the intake system since mid-January. So, like, they're bringing in 1 million gallons a minute, and that sucks all these animals in there, and they die. It was so concerning, the company shut down one of their nuclear reactors for a week and a half. They shut it down so they can clear it. They didn't shut it down because they're trying to protect the species. So the fish have been removed, and Unit 2 is back in service. They had to shut it down because they couldn't get enough water because there was millions of dead fish blocking the intake water caused by nuclear. Like, if, I can show you documentation of billions of fish killed at a single nuclear power plant in a year. Large fish that would lay eggs every year being wiped out each year. Bruce Power said the fish have been removed and the disease factor is up and running again. The company says they're trying to determine exactly what led to the die-off, but they say they're not alone. The gizzard shag is a very important keystone species. As far as south, and this couldn't be a population level event. So they're saying there's so many species out there, it's just a level event. This is Bruce Power saying that. This is nuclear industry saying stuff like that. That's simply not true. Large numbers of the shag have been observed in Lake Huron, including Bruce Power, likely due to a high rate of reproduction. Says Bruce Power, says the nuclear plant. Scumbag, man. What a scumbag to say something like that. Warmer lake temperatures in the last couple of years, not the last couple of years, they're pumping 1 million gallons out of each reactor. I think they got 6. 1 million gallons, that's 4,500 tons of hot water back into the Great Lakes every minute, every 60 seconds. 1,440 minutes a day. Gizzard shag are naturally sensitive to cold water temperatures, can experience mass die-off in the oil. Really, they've been there for millions of generations and they're sensitive. In Canada, the Canadian fish are sensitive to cold temperatures. Really? In Canada? Nuclear industry is disgusting, eh? Said they're working with federal authorities to try to get to the root of the problems of the fish kill. Well, the root of the problem is your disease factories. Nuclear power plants. Bruce Nuclear Power, they only put Bruce Power there. Bruce Nuclear Power acknowledges a large number of fish died after getting trapped in their intake system. Large number. Like when you got to shut down your intake system to clear out, send in divers to clear out the dead fish, you're talking millions. Remember, these things need 4,500 tons of water each minute. That's equal to 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks with 1,000 liters of water, dumping it into the reactor each minute. Imagine 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks going past your front door every minute. Then you might appreciate the volume we're talking about. There's 6 of those disease factors. And so they also had a large bird die-off, and they're checking for conditions including botulism and avian flu in the middle of winter, really. Disgusting people. The nuclear industry is just nothing but disgusting, subhuman people. It looks like we barely got through anything. I've been going like an hour and 20 minutes. I barely got a dent in it. Might be a 2-part show if it keeps going like this. Are part of the investigation to what led to the dead fish and waterfowl. There is no investigation. They're doing their own investigation. Their job... Just give me 1 second. I got to go get the tweezers. They're just right there. But I keep hooking. I got something stuck in my finger from the day. Just wait. Give me a second here. I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. I'm almost back in my chair. There we go. We're up and running. Stuff happens. Bruce Power acknowledges a large number of fish have died after getting trapped in their intake system. They had to shut the plant down, send down divers to remove them. Because you couldn't run the reactors. Yeah, I think I got it. Okay, I got it. Woohoo! I don't know what that was. So 3.5 to 4.5 million fish were trapped and died at the nuclear plant discharge channel. 3.5 to 4.5 million. 3.5 to 4.5 million divers had to go in and remove 3.5 to 4.5 million fish at the nuclear plant. It's crazy. It's such a crazy statement, isn't it? Oh no, Bruce Power acknowledges a large number of fish have died. Like 3.5 to 4.5 million is not a large number. It's a holy shit number. That's a holy shit amount, right? Right there. Just bear with me. See, the whole thing about these stories is there's no shortcuts. You can't take your time, right? It's you have a responsibility to articulate the story the best you can every time, right? It blows my mind. Like 3.5 to 4.5 million. They had to shut the plant down for weeks, send in divers. Part of the investigation to what led to the dead fish. They were like you shut the plant down because they sucked into the grill, right? They have like a fence there to stop big species from getting into the nuclear plant. This is normal for every plant out there. Actually, I got some of that here for you. Dead fish and waterfowl, birds. So think about this story here: how nuclear kills fish. The environmental agencies of New Jersey, New York now require their largest water uses, nuclear plants, to either install modern cooling systems in order to prevent the death of billions of fish each year or to cease operation. That's 2 nuclear plants killing billions of fish a year. They're talking about billions of fish each year. So this was Indian Point study. They have a devastating impact on surrounding fish populations. Environmental analysts in the 2 states have found these facilities kill more than 17 billion adult fish, egg layers, each year. And 9 billion in New Jersey. So New York nuclear plant killed 17 billion large fish a year. 17 billion. It doesn't stop there though. Watch this. And 9 billion in New Jersey. That's just 2 plants. 26 billion fish. And affected species include endangered sturgeons, which takes like 100 years to mature. Sea turtles are sucked into the cooling systems. The National Marine Fisheries Services found that once through the cooling systems, they're vacuuming up trillions of newly hatched fish and destroying them in the heat exchangers. So it's not just the adults, you have trillions of baby fish being exterminated. And there's strong evidence that the decline in the fish stocks along the entire northeast Atlantic seaboard is due more to the destructions of baby fish than the overfishing of adults by the commercial fleets. So nuclear plants are your worst enemy for species. The Indian Point sucks in 2.5 billion gallons of water a day. And when it spits it out, it's incredibly hot. Oh, well, the lakes are just warming naturally, Dana. Yeah, because they got 18 nuclear reactors on the coastline, on the shoreline. Not counting what America got on their side of the Great Lakes, right? Kill about 2 billion juvenile and mature fish in its screens and thermal plumes. That's different ways. This is different ways that they kill fish. The NRC estimated more than 300 billion. Each plant kills it in many different ways of killing fish. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission estimated more than 300 billion baby fish are killed each year, but they're sucked into the 40-foot wide intake pipes. These are nuclear plants. Are not only do they poison all the water and all the entire biosphere. There's less oxygen in the world's lakes than there was 20 years ago. Oh, you mean 14 years ago. 83% of the lake studied oxygen levels dropping faster than observations of rivers and oceans. The oxygen levels in over 15,000 lakes. When we were doing the research expeditions, one of the things that came up was the glaciers, because you're going along the Rocky Mountains coastline. You can see the Rocky Mountains from the ocean all the time, right? But after a few years, there was no glaciers in the Rockies anymore in the summertime. So the only thing you see now is if you have a heavy snow in the winter, there's snow, right? There's snowpack. But by summer, that snowpack is mostly gone, if not gone altogether. And so the glaciers, for thousands of years, during droughts and all in the summer anyway, will release water, cold water, that runs down through the lakes and streams all the way down to the coastline and estuaries. And that regulates the temperatures, particularly during droughts. But now they don't have that anymore, post-Fukushima. So now the rivers and streams and little ponds and big ponds and estuaries and coastlines don't have that cold water coming down regulating the temperature. So the temperature rises up so much, the fish can't hatch, the birds don't exist, the insects are not there in those environments anymore because you destroyed the habitat by radiation fallout, harming living species in lakes and impacting economies on the shore. And we've been able to show, right, die-offs in certain areas. When you trace where the water came from, it was from the glaciers. So it was because now the salmon couldn't get up the river, right? There we go, keep going. Globally, dissolved oxygen levels in lakes are dropping due to climate change. Climate change is 80 years of radioactive fallout. Radioactive fallout never goes away and is pulsing energy at the speed of light every second. So it's bioaccumulating in the atmosphere, on the land. Freshwater lakes are losing vital surface oxygen as global heating continues. Global heating. Like, the only thing that makes any sense is 80 years of nuclear. That would account for all of these issues. That's the only equation out there that works for all the species die-offs, for all of these abnormalities, for these massive floods, massive forest fires, so-called global warming is real, but it's real because we killed off the biosphere, the ecosystem. California's largest water reservoir is seen at 30% the capacity. They don't have glaciers anymore anywhere, right? So you've seen this symmetrical across the board. Global heating. And what happens was you sterilize the ocean. And so the ocean was 1 billion creatures in a glass of water. So now when you have a typhoon or a cyclone or a hurricane that's going over this ocean that's heated up because it doesn't have a regulatory ecosystem anymore. And so the proliferation of dead zones in the ocean, there's quite a lot of countries done this particular trick here that I'm going to talk about. Is the dirty, not a trick, but a dirty thing they done to us. So Great Britain is the best example, where they had dedicated freighters, would take 45-gallon drums of nuclear waste, and they're just driving around nonstop. They don't stop anywhere. It's not all in one place. And they're dumping 45-gallon drums as they're driving along on the ocean for 30 years. And that creates a dead zone. And wherever those drums are going to go to, that's the dead zone. As the drums are sinking, if they don't, they shoot them, by the way. And so now they're immediately releasing radiation. But the whole thing is, when they sink, they'll compress. Every 33 feet is 14.6 pounds per square inch. And so now the drums, which are crimped on the top and the bottom, the lids are crimped onto drums, right? Will just break off before it hits the bottom. After 100 feet, you're talking about 3 atmospheric pressures. So you create all these dead zones. But now you got Fukushima. And that's what Fukushima is really good at. Once it gets in the ocean, it creates massive... The entire ocean becomes a dead zone. Radioactive fallout for 80 years is global warming. Gas, oil, and coal emissions don't have any of these attributes. Gas, oil, and coal emissions don't cover the planet in 20 or 30 days. It doesn't make plumes like that, see? Gas, oil, and coal emissions make more trees, more insects, more birds, more puppies. The recent analysis of 15,000 lakes showed a widespread decline in surface dissolved oxygen levels. How many of them were dependent upon glaciers? And you sterilize the water. There's phytoplankton in freshwater, not just saltwater too, right? Urgent mitigation strategies are essential to preserve these vital ecosystems. There is no mitigation strategy. You can't claw back what the nuclear industry done to you. Physics.org. Climate warming heat waves are accelerating global freshwater ecosystem require adequate oxygen. Well, you kill the phytoplankton, you get rid of the biggest byproduct, the biggest producer of oxygen in those ecosystems. Adequate oxygen levels are critical for sustaining aerobic life and fostering robust biological communities. World's melting glaciers threaten food and water supplies for 2 billion people. Like, if you look at how many glaciers have melted post-Fukushima compared to pre-Fukushima, then you can appreciate what I'm telling you. The glaciers are absolutely vital for a majority of, like, say, the West Coast. They're feeding all the estuaries and rivers and streams and lakes. They're regulating the temperatures in the summertime. When that rises up because they don't exist anymore, the species environment doesn't exist anymore. So they fail year after year, and after a few years that manifests into the other species that were dependent upon them, right? 70% of the fresh water is stored by glaciers and ice sheets. Most of that is now gone post-Fukushima. Right, you can trace the decline of this to the post-Fukushima and to the nuclear bombs, the nuclear weapons, the nuclear fallout. You got 1,000 fuel pools splitting atoms into your environment. So the whole picture goes back 80 years. If you go back 80 years to before the nuclear industry showed up, our planet was amazing. It was amazing. There's been 110 billion people on the planet before we came along. You can't blame it on people. You blame it on an industry, and the nuclear industry should never exist. The nuclear industry has no right to exist. Excuse me. And less snowfall in mountain regions. The glacier rate of change is the worst ever recorded post-Fukushima, see? The last 3 years saw the largest ever glacier mass. I have no idea what they're talking about there. As the water towers of the world, mountains are an essential source of fresh water. Mountains play a unique and critical role in the global water cycle, and they affect atmospheric circulation, which drives weather and precipitation patterns. Glacier decline also means the reflective of the surface is replaced by dark soil, which absorbs heat. This is an absurd suggestion, by the way. The earth is dried out because we killed the biota. We kill the biota that breaks down the foliage and the litter. We kill the biota that makes up the mass, right? That holds water. So without that biota to hold the water, the earth becomes tinder dry and heats up. Like it's unbelievable how we got forest fires. We're still in winter. It was -2 this morning when I went out and tried to work on the vehicle. It was -2. Even now, we got forest fires and the woods are tinder dry, and still basically not winter per se, but it is winter. Summer doesn't start here till halfway through July, second week in July, and we got forest fires like for the last month, over even actually before that. President International Fund for Agricultural Development was also chair of the UN. UN is a creature that shouldn't exist. I just despise anything to do with the UN. I can't stand their guts anymore. They're such scumbags. The world's lakes are losing oxygen rapidly as planet warms and biodiversity and drinking water quality is threatened. And the lakes only make up 3% of the Earth's surface. They contain a disproportionate concentration of the planet's biodiversity. Oxygen saturation, as the amount of oxygen that water can hold goes down as temperatures goes up. Temperatures are going up because you destroyed the phytoplankton, which is the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. And we know this because we've been studying it non-stop for years and years and years. So the algae blooms will show up because there's nothing there to stop it or eat it. The result is oxygen in deep water is less likely to get replenished during the warm stratified season, which normally, when oxygen levels decline, bacteria thrives in an environment without oxygen, such as those produces methane begins to proliferate. Like methane is natural, okay? That's the working of the planet system. Like you're doing everything but blaming it on what the real blame is, which is 80 years of radioactive emissions directly into the environment. I mean, think about this statement. 220 million atoms per liter on the west coast of Canada. This was a Canadian study, but it's symmetrical throughout the northern west coast of North America. Not just the west coast, but the entire continent. 220 million atoms per liter of iodine-129 in the rain. 220 million atoms. We're only talking about iodine-129, which happens to have a 15 million year half-life. Saturated thyroid glands of every insect, every species, every bird, every animal, every mammal, and it's full body X-rays for every species in the ecosystem on top of this. Because you can't just have gamma, iodine-129. You're going to have alphas and betas and neutrons, and they're pulsing energy, each of them almost at the speed of light. When they hit each other, they don't mingle. They don't pass through each other. They hit each other and they reflect. So you got energy almost at the speed of light, more energy almost at the speed of light. When they hit each other, they change direction almost at the speed of light each. That's called an X-ray. And in the ecosystem, it's called a full body X-ray. Sterilizes all the little species and eventually the bigger species. But when you see the documentation, this is documentation. This was a study out of Ottawa, Canada. This is not up for debate, this stuff. CC-137 plume forecast, North America, Europe to March. France's IRSN. But of course, I showed you earlier, this wasn't a forecast. This was a study of a spike of 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels of CC-137 per cubic meter of air. The ocean was covered and saturated from the ocean floor to the surface, documented in less than a month. Because the radioactive fallout covered the entire planet. So all the fresh water was destroyed, right? Its biological workings, the creatures, like you're talking about 1 billion creatures in a glass of water, wiped out. And because people don't think of water as like that. They don't think of water as the essence of a soup of life, right? I touch my glasses or something? Hang on. Oh, it's not too bad. That's a good thing about being in the studio. You got lots of light. Sometimes I want to wear sunglasses, but I've dialed back my lights over the years. And I've added even better lights. All digital lights now. So each of my big digital lights, I got 13 of them, got 600 digital LED lights each. But I have, close to me, I have a set of 6 special lights that are designed for filmmaking and pictures. So they have the right frequency of colors for cameras and that. They were $150 each though, fillers. They were worth it though. They're really easy. They're a lot easier on your eyes and stuff like that. And it gives you more accurate colors. I just have no respect whatsoever for universities. Nothing. After all the stories, just a few weeks ago, I covered Harvard University in a show, Yale University in another show, Stanford University in another show, which is not my first time doing those presentations. We'd done that originally 14 years ago, right? Where they talk, their original reply to Fukushima, and they had the auditorium of the pro-nuclear community sitting there laughing at their demented jokes. Conservatives pledged to revive seal harvesting in Newfoundland to protect the fish stocks. So they're trying to blame the fish stocks, the dead seafood, the dead fish on the east coast of Canada, on seals. It's estimated the harp seal alone consumes 22 million or something. Let me see. But the reason this was normal, right? So, because they're not finding anything out there, so they're assuming that it's the seals and sea lions are to blame, right? But it's Fukushima is what broke the food chain. They're further up the food chain, right? And they can eat many different species. They are predators for sure, but that it can no longer, there is no fish, they're not catching fish, so they're assuming it has to be predators instead of looking at the signs of what Fukushima done, for instance. Volunteer rescue group saves a beached whale sharks in the Arabian Sea to Australia West Coast. Not sure where this is to. Hang on. This is a whale shark. We see a lot of that over the last number of years, isn't it? Because they're dependent typically upon phytoplankton, which is missing for the most part. With surprising increasing regularity this summer of whale sharks showing up. With surprising increasing regularity this summer. So what's causing whale sharks to show up in their migratory route? Well, as we know from all the other species, it's typically because they're emaciated. They're filter feeders. And so zooplankton, phytoplankton, and they're not going to find the small and large fish per se anymore. Since 2021, they rescued 23 whale sharks that were stranded. So we're seeing a lot of bear predatory behaviors on human. They're encroaching in the human environment. Half alien, half mermaid appeared on a JK beach. I'm assuming this is not real, but I was reading the story and I started grabbing screen captures, and typically once I grab the story, I might as well cover it for something a bit light-hearted. This could be real. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying I personally don't think it's real, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Alien-like mermaid skeleton washes up in the United Kingdom. And he said, I'm officially creeped out. Could be real. I don't know. I'll put it out there for something to do. But an extraterrestrial-looking head, a skeleton-like body, and a scaled mermaid-appearing tail. Like there are creatures out there we've never seen. This is another story down here where I'm currently. Took a selfie with a beached whale. What the hell is wrong with people, man? So the media loves mockery, eh? Anything to mock. The whale's still got snow all around it. 10,000 views is now worthy of the news. They'll talk about it, but they won't cover my stuff, right? He's a photographer. Really? I took 250,000 pictures of the coastline on research expeditions. I'm not a photographer. Everybody's a friggin' photographer now. Everybody got a high definition camera in their pocket now. There wasn't much of a smell, which is something I seen. There was no insects, but on that particular, there's snow, right? So you don't expect to see too much. You don't expect to smell too much, but you would expect to smell something, because the whale is in pretty rough condition. Second dead whale, and you can see he's emaciated just from that picture, reported in Delaware waters. In the Indian River Bay early March the 31st. This is the second dead whale in March. Humpback whale. And then there's a third whale on a sandbar. And you can see he's emaciated. You get the peanut head. And look at his spine and his tail. Clearly that guy's emaciated. In the mud, a 36-foot emaciated sea creature washes up on a California beach. Emaciated. That's a gray whale, again. An unusual mortality event involving gray whales declared in 2019. After the ecosystem changes in the whale feeding areas caused hundreds of deaths along the Pacific coast. It's 10,000. Well, this was 3 years ago. There was the official number was 10,350 gray whales. Same for humpbacks, same for beak whales, same for many different species. Near record sighting of gray whales reported in San Francisco Bay. They don't belong in San Francisco Bay. They only start going to San Francisco Bay post Fukushima, by the way. 9 gray whales in the bay in a single day. There should be none there, right? In terms of recent years, it's quite high. A couple of them are underweight. Oh, they're underweight, are they? You sure they're not emaciated? Starving to death. Excuse me. Brutal censorship again, man. Let's keep her rolling here. Let's bring up the poll, actually. Did Fukushima fuel pools, just 36 reactor cores, that melted down in a 5-day period, because they're at the top of 4 reactor buildings and 8 fuel pools. 36 massive pure uranium plutonium reactor cores cause a mass species die-off worldwide from radioactive fallout. Unfortunately, yes. Hang on here. I smurfed up. Now I gotta find my way all the way back down. A couple of them are underweight. How much did a killer whale die off down here somewhere? I can see it right there, but... Oh, that's way down there, actually. Oh, that shouldn't have happened. Oh, I know what happened. That jumped. I'll find my spot here. Give me a second. Look at this emaciated. We'll get to that story coming up. I see his rib cage in this picture here. Look at his rib cage. It's in Belgium, eh? Let's keep rolling here. I know we done that one. I know we done this one. So we're down here, yeah, Delaware. We're down below that somewhere. Yeah, just below here somewhere. I kind of lost my spot. Yeah, that's it. That's the area here. A couple of them are underweight. No, it's not a couple of them. They're all underweight. Come on, man. Like, how can a couple of whales be underweight, but the other whales, there's 9 gray whales. Some of them are emaciated and some of them are not. How does that work? Anybody know? Anyone want to explain that kind of science to me, please? Is there anybody out there want to explain that? How can you have some of them emaciated and some of them not? You can call in at 709-589-4406 if you're a marine biologist, academic scientist, speculator. Explain it to me. I want to hear. I want to hear how you got 9 gray whales, but some of them not underweight, but it's absurd to use that term too. On top of that, they're emaciated. They're not underweight. Spokesperson for San Francisco Gate. No, Dana. They're not emaciated. They're underweight, Dana. What do gray whales eat again? Ghost shrimp, herring eggs, worms, larvae, phytoplankton, squid, krill, crab larvae, ghost shrimp, plankton, small fish. Plankton, which is the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestration chain, it's the biggest part of their diets. That's why we got over 10,350 emaciated. Dead whale found in San Francisco Bay. What, really? Well, the seagulls, you'll never see seagulls in the tidal zones anymore. You only see them at McDonald's and wherever there's emaciated whales. 2 additional dead gray whales were found in San Francisco Bay this week. 2 more at a state park. March the 30th, female gray whale was found dead on Black Sands Beach in the Golden Gate Recreational Area. Additional dead whales were found April 2nd, April 4th. It sure seems like there's a lot of them, doesn't it? Convenient not to show us any pictures. Another deceased whale found in Sussex County water. Another. To save insects, we need to understand their decline. Yeah. You got to start admitting Fukushima and the nuclear industry is your biggest. Like, if you can't rule them out because that's why they're not going to look at them, right? United Kingdom, of course, the United Kingdom, man. I feel so bad for everybody in the United Kingdom because your media is disgusting. Reported that bumblebees had their worst year since records began. Really. The pollinators. The United States found that butterfly numbers dropped by 22%. They're pollinators too, right? Why are insect populations declining? Because radioactive pollen. The world's insect populations are plummeting everywhere we look. Gee, I wonder what could be causing insects worldwide all of a sudden post-Fukushima. Worldwide. Like, that's the radioactive plume, April 7, 2011. Excuse me. 27 days. Covering the entire planet. That study, I believe, was cesium-137. It's just not one isotope. This is reactor 3, ejecting 8 reactor cores and out of the fuel pool and the reactor core itself right out of the building. As soon as this stuff is exposed to oxygen, it ignites. That's why you see such a big plume, right? Because normally the buildings, at that part of the building, if nothing is done to halt the decline, our own future could be at risk. It's not a decline, it's plummeting everywhere we look worldwide. Insects in decline. 2 small whales washed ashore in central Vietnam. Like pre-Fukushima, the odds of finding 2 dead whales on the same beach, you had better chance of getting hit by a Soviet satellite in 3, 2, 1. Are you still there? I can't see you. Are you okay? Did you get hit by a Soviet satellite? 2 small whales found dead on a local beach within 2 days. Fishermen described it as highly unusual. Dolphins found stranded on the riverbank miles from the ocean in Belgium. So Belgium, a lot of die-offs, isn't it? A rare appearance. On a riverbank, fresh water. So we already showed one freshwater one, right? Dolphin. On a riverbank in Belgium, miles from the ocean, was officially labeled as a rare appearance. No, an never seen before appearance. Not a rare appearance, it's never been seen before. It was a strange surprise. Really, what kind of surprise was it? You mean strange shock, not surprise. Surprise is usually associated with something good, isn't it? They are not adapted to living in rivers, and it's unclear why the individual, there was 2 of them, right? Not one, swam all the way up that river. 9-foot sea creature found dead along North Carolina Creek had trash in his stomach, the lab says. Like, does anybody really think the 9-foot sea creature doesn't know what it's supposed to eat? A dolphin. We found one. We didn't find one. There was one story came out where there was a faucet and a hose, probably about, yay long. Allegedly was found in a dolphin's stomach. A dolphin can't swallow something like that. Someone poked it down his throat, but there's no way the dolphin's going to swallow something like that. Dolphins are not stupid. They chase their food. They don't just eat anything. They don't eat plastic bags, right? They chase food. They're one of the smartest creatures on the planet. You think they're really going to go around eating plastic bags? Really? Is anybody out there that stupid to believe that? On the bank of the deep creek, freshwater, another dolphin in freshwater, was a very thin, matured adult male. Very thin. You know, we call it emaciated, starved to death. Probable cause of death revealed: a large plastic bag with a knot in the center of the stomach. No food items were found in the stomach. Like, they'll just pass that right through the system, right? That's like to suggest that they ate the plastic bag in the first thing is absurd. Dolphins are not idiots, okay? It's very difficult to like anybody in the media anymore. It's impossible. They usually weigh up to 1,300 pounds. This one was only half the weight. It was emaciated. They are known to accidentally eat plastic after mistaking it for food, or swallow it while eating other things. Like pizzas. This was a Saratoga Dolphin Research Program in Florida reported. You people are scumbags. They're not known to accidentally eat plastic, you shit for brains. You disgusting maggot. We covered this stuff. Whale spotted off the Belgium coast for the first time ever. It's a lot of stories on Belgium tonight, isn't it? Isn't that something? We started this show off with that Belgium nuclear song from James Lewis's website. A fin whale. Identify the animal as a fin whale. All these species dying off, and Belgium's like, well, we need more nuclear. We hate whales. We hate dolphins. Get more nuclear. Kill these creatures. Noting that it appeared to be thin. Really? I never heard that before. The whale showed up off Belgium coastline like you see, this is the fin whale. Remember the killer whale I showed you? We still haven't got to that story. That's the next story. Well, there's another story with 2 or 3, and then the next story is the killer whales in Belgium. A fin whale, emaciated fin whale, emaciated. It just happens to be just like the emaciated killer whale they found over in, you guessed it, Belgium. What a coincidence. It appeared thin. Like, these are huge whales. They're like 400,000 pound whales. They don't just appear thin, they appear emaciated. They have peanut heads and everything else. So the new one now for the last little while has been calling them thin or malnourished. But the thin, we're seeing that a lot, aren't we? It's the second largest whale species, and it appeared thin, did it? Really? Loggerhead sea turtle found on the Belgian beach for the first time. Belgium. Quite the abnormalities. Oh, washed up orca on a Belgian beach. The autopsy couldn't find the cause of death. Look at his rib cage sticking up. Look how, it's like a deflated blow-up toy or something, right? Look at it. That's so emaciated. His rib cages, as you'll see with the pictures coming up, peanut head. The tail is so thin. I've never seen that thin before. I've seen a lot of emaciated killer whales, but I've never seen them that thin. I've never seen their rib cage stick up ever. All these emaciated animals showing up in Belgium. Gee, that not even supposed to be there. Up in the freshwater rivers in desperation is what it is. You can see the peanut head there. It'll get better pictures coming up. There's a couple of these stories I grabbed. The autopsy, necropsy. No clear cause of death haven't been established, really. No clear cause of death in the emaciated animal, is there? You worthless friggin' scum. With predators at the top of the food chain, the cause of death can be an indicator of the health of the whole ecosystem. Well, ain't that an interesting statement? In other words, it's emaciated, Dana. It's very difficult to like any of these people in the media or the so-called ocean groups and stuff like that. It's impossible actually to like these people. Orca washes up on a Belgian beach. There you go, peanut hit. Significant emaciation in the whole body line. That poor bugger is emaciated. You can see the peanut head clearly. Look at this. Holy shit. I've never seen nothing like it. I've never seen nothing like that before. In a killer whale. Now, killer whale can eat everything. And it does, right? It can eat anything. It has so much radiation in its muscles and its bones and everything that it died of cancer, no doubt, right? It can't produce any more red blood cells on top of that. It can't uptake any nutrition. And once they get so much radiation, they can't eat anyway, right? A historical first. A few hours later, it washed up on the beach and died. So when it came up on the beach, it was alive. Believed to be one of the first of an orca on a Belgian coastline. It was seen swimming along the Belgian coast towards France. No photographs were initially available to validate the sightings. Emaciated. Severe emaciation, eh? The orca, the very last paragraph, the orca appeared to be quite thin. Thin! Thin. Really? Thin. Let me get out of the way here. In case you want to get a screen capture. Like, calling that thin is an insult to humanity. That just blows my mind looking at it. That's horrific emaciation we're looking at right there. Not me. I'm getting there, mind you. Washed up orca. Autopsy could not find a cause of death. No, it was quite thin. It was emaciated. They couldn't find a cause of death. Fentanyl found inside of dolphins in the Gulf of Mexico. We think this is a long-standing problem. These people are insane, eh? Bruce Powers says bird flu likely cause of shoreline bird deaths. Bruce nuclear power. It can't be nuclear. It got to be bird flu, Dana. It's impossible to like these people, eh? They're the worst humans I've ever come across. Is the nuclear industry. They're just subhuman. They added from the 1st to March 11, which is Fukushima's anniversary. That's not subtle social engineering at all, is it? And it's not just one species, it's many species. Unusual event, over 250 sea lion pups found on California island, puzzling researchers. Well, like a sea lion, first off, shouldn't have any wrinkles. And should have a very healthy fur. These are all emaciated. And it's not really good pictures. But aborted California sea lion fetuses, 250 of them. Oh, pregnant sea lions need to swim further in search of shifting prey species. Shifting prey species. We see that all the time whenever NOAA is in a story. We'll see that particular narrative. And when they're not there sometimes. But you see the influences. When you see shifting prey species, that's the cover story for radioactive fallout. It wiped out the species. They don't shift. They don't go somewhere else. They've been you're talking about millions of generations of these species. You really think they're going to just change post-Fukushima for something to do? Huh? Malnourished. Oh, they're malnourished, are they? You sure they're not emaciated? They sure look emaciated to me, said the vulture. The spokesperson said, "Not observed any signs of widespread diseases, any other factor that may affect the sea lion population." They're just unlikable people, aren't they? Brown pelicans found starving to death in California's coastline. Brown pelicans found starving to death. What could it be happening? Can't be the food chain was broken by Japan. Scumbag Japan, could it? Emaciated, stranded pelicans. They're not stranded, they're emaciated. They're dying. Most birds are coming in cold, emaciated, anemic, essentially starving to death. Like literally 4 out of every 5 stories, they'll describe it as thin or something like that, but it's just another word for emaciated. Resembling the phenomenon that happened in 2022 when hundreds of birds were emitted for emaciated California brown pelicans. Emaciated, anemic. Starving birds. Increase in starving birds are causing concern. Over 300 pelicans in just 10 days, was it? And they were dying because of complications related to starvation. Complications related to starvation. Why are they starving? Because there's no food out there. Just say it like it is. Don't sugarcoat it. While the pelicans' food sources do seem to have numbers, heavy winds or rough seas could affect the birds' ability to dive for their primary food. Sardines, mackerels, and anchovies. No, it doesn't. Heavy winds and rough seas. Like, have you people lost your friggin' marbles? And that's not any wire pelican starving there. Oh, because same reason the insects are all dying, Dana, because of storms. It's just, how can these people take these jobs? How can people with an education say that publicly out loud, put it in print? How does that work? Then they go home and tell their children what kind of hero they are. It appears that when pickings are slim in the ocean, they start taking more risk. Oh, it's bad weather. They're taking more risk because there's less food, blah, blah, blah. 800, in spring of 2022, 800 pelicans came in emaciated. I'm sure we covered that. Bird flu is now a major threat to marine life. Sure it is. There you go. It's just jumping the species, is it? After millions of generations of never jumping the species, all of a sudden it's jumping the species. Why would it jump the species? Because their immune systems are compromised from 14 years of radiation poisoning, radiation bioaccumulation. Their immune systems are completely compromised. And bird flu, for the first decade, never even got mentioned, did it? All the mass species die off. Suspected of falling victim to a bird flu. How can you suspect that a falling victim to a bird flu? How can you suspect that? You lunatics. Obviously, I got hit. No, I got hit by a ship, actually, didn't I? Hit by a UFO, Dana. Clearly. Obviously, it was hit by a UFO, unidentified flying object, with a bunch of little aliens on, accidentally hit it because that's where they normally land, on the back of a sea lion, Dana. Oh, well, I didn't know that. That's great news. Thank you. It was detected in 48 mammal species and strongly implicated in a mass die-off of sea lions and seals. Strongly implicated. See, these are not words you use. You use science. You don't use conjectures and opinions, right? It doesn't jump to species pre-Fukushima. Why is it jumping now? If it never jumped to species before, and of course, United Nations will chop everything I'm saying. Everything I'm saying that makes sense will get chopped out of this video in 12 hours. In Argentina, and I'll repost this video up on BitChute tonight or tomorrow, over 17,000, so you won't have the edited version that you're going to have in 12 hours' time. Trust me, in 12 hours' time, a lot of this stuff will disappear. In Argentina, over 17,000 southern elephant seal pups were found dead in a die-off attributed to the virus. And I showed you pictures. The 3,500 in Peru, these were emaciated. They didn't die of bird flu. These were emaciated. And we've already covered this story, right? These were emaciated too. We have pictures. There was 24,000 sea lion deaths linked to it recorded in Peru, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. And I showed you some of that evidence earlier. Severe. The most severe emaciated animals you'll ever see. If you've watched all the video, you know what I'm talking about. If you're just joining me recently, when you watch it later, you'll see what I showed you the documentation. There was 3,500 sea lions in Peru where they were trying to conflate it with bird flu. As well as sea lions. We're going to finish this out tonight, I think. Might as well finish it out. As well as sea lions and elephant seals, this includes marine otters and dolphins. And trees. And trees are all dying of bird flu, Dana. Oh, of course they are. You must be an academic, are you? Yeah, that's right. Oh, okay, I'll believe you. The last person I'll be trusting is an academic. The very last person I would trust. Or a journalist, a disgusting journalist. As well as sea lions and elephant seals, this includes otters and dolphins. And baseballs are dying because of bird flu. Did you know that? That's how the caveman died. He died of bird flu. All right, the saber-toothed tiger. That's why the dinosaurs, they didn't die of a meteor strike. They died from bird flu, Dana. Oh, okay. Are you an academic? Oh, okay, then must be true. The bird flu also reached the Galapagos, says Claire Smith, UK policy. Anybody from the United Kingdom of the official government or universities, these are sadistic monsters. These are sadistic, revolting, parasitic monsters, people. The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. The United Kingdom dumped nuclear waste for 30 years directly into the Atlantic Ocean. There's 8 million litres a day hemorrhaging into the ocean in the United Kingdom from windscale, or Sellafield, formerly known as windscale. You really think that stuff's like fucking fairy dust? Excuse the language. Of the 56 native Galapagos bird species, 45 are endemics, means they're only found there. Listen, the radiation has covered I showed you multiple times already, covered the entire planet. And the gannet die-offs in 2022, they died of starvation. They didn't die of bird flu. Impact on wild marine birds have varied wildly. In UK, there have been a 70% reduction in northern gannets. What was really interesting about the gannet die-off, you had gannets here in Canada, gannets in the United Kingdom, on the very same day show up in stories of mass die-offs. And they were trying to conflate it with a bird flu. On the same day. Because we covered it, right? In 2022. There's a link below to the playlist with all of that stuff in it, by the way. But on the other side of the world, Antarctica, the penguins tested positive without showing any ill effects. Like orange peel will test positive for bird flu if you test it with the stuff they're using. No matter what even Coca-Cola will test positive for bird flu if you use their machine to test it. I'm not kidding you, by the way. Anything the United Kingdom officials tell you is always garbage. I can't comprehend why they're so evil, but they are. They're completely disgusting maggots. There's a vaccine, really, on poultry, on chickens. Don't be eating chicken in the United Kingdom, folks. Peru bird flu. Thousands of pelicans found dead. BBC. Disgusting BBC. 5,500 pelicans died in Peru in recent weeks to an outbreak of bird flu. 13,000 birds were killed because of the strain, they said. Beaches are littered with carcasses of dead animals, and some have been found in protected areas. The virus doesn't jump species for millions of generations, but post-Fukushima, there's a bird flu jumping species. Gee, I wonder what could cause that post-Fukushima, after Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. And of course, I showed you earlier about Peru lying about the 3,500 sea lions that were emaciated. They didn't die of bird flu, they died of starvation. And that was the severest emaciated sea lions I've ever seen in all these years. They were saying it was bird flu. It doesn't work that way. It takes a very, very long time to lose 1,000 pounds. Bird flu kills sea lions and thousands of pelicans in Peru protected areas. Reuters. Which means that it immediately goes out to 1,900 medias. I'll do some drinky hang up. Oh, that was a rough day today. I'm feeling it. Let's keep going though. Let's try to get through this. It's impossible to like an academic. It's impossible to trust a scientist. It's 100% impossible to trust a journalist. Because the stupid, idiot, moron nuclear industry, the shit for brain, useless scum. So I've had 23 likes for at least 40 minutes. 18 viewers for at least 40 minutes. YouTube is just so revolting. The pro-nuclear community is just not even a subhuman. You can't even describe them as humans. World Organization for Animals is recognized by the World Trade Organization. Not part of the United Nations, but it's part of the United Nations. In cooperation with the United Nations. They've taken over your whole planet. People just sat there and let it happen too. They don't call them out on it. They don't try to hold them accountable. Gray whales are dying off the Pacific coast again. The scientists aren't sure. They haven't stopped dying post-Fukushima. It's not again. It hasn't stopped happening. Well, you can't understand why they're emaciated all along their entire migratory route. Why is that such a hard thing to figure out? Because you want to blame it on your tin cans, your pop bottles, and your cardboard. Instead of the nuclear industry perpetual emissions for 80 years. Fukushima was a pulse event, right? Well, it looks okay, actually. That's just me. That's just my eyes. I'm so busted up. Isn't that funny? I mean, I'm busted up, too. Everything hurts. That'll teach me. I'll probably be okay tomorrow, next day or something. At least 70 whales have perished since the start of the year in the shallow lagoons of Mexico's Baja, California peninsula. 70 whales in that one spot. Isn't that one of their nurseries? Only 5 mother-calf pairs were identified in Laguna San Ignacio or something. I can't pronounce that. My apologies. The lowest number of mother-calf pairs ever observed in the lagoon. Yeah, that's where they're raising their young. That's right. That has been observed in gray whales since the 70s. Oh, they're skinny, are they? Malnourished, are they? We like to call it emaciated. We call it what it is. And it takes a long time to lose 12 inches of blubber. You're doing without food for a very long, maybe even 10,000 kilometers. Malnutrition, eh? Again. We didn't see a single southbound calf, which has never happened in the 40 years they've been looking at it. Others believe it's a lack of food based on the depleted conditions which some of the whales have been found. The depleted condition. You know, the emaciated, fact that the whales were emaciated. No, Dana, it's depleted conditions, Dana. I don't know if I've ever heard that framed that way before. Have we ever heard it framed that way before? Depleted conditions from lack of food? Jesus, but lack of food based on the depleted conditions. So, like, these people shock me sometimes, eh? Mass die-off of grey whales. It's never stopped dying off post-Fukushima. Basically, the majority of their diet is the phytoplankton. The base is the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. If you kill off the food chain, the bases of the food chain, the oxygen chain, and the carbon sequestering chain, what happens over the next decade or two, I wonder? Just give me a second there. A little weak that time. The skinny whales. You can see it in photographs who describe the skinny whales as looking like they had necks because a thick pad, fat pad that typically covers that area where the skull is gone. We call it a peanut head area, right? I'll go backwards for a second. Lack of food based on the depleted conditions. A little later they talk about. You can see it in the photographs of the skinny whales. These are emaciated. And that's no such thing as a skinny whale. It's an emaciated, starved to death. It's emaciated. When you look at a whale and the whale looks skinny, it's emaciated. They even look like they got a neck because they lost so much. They're so emaciated. You shouldn't see a whale's shoulder blade. Well, there's a really, really important statement, isn't it? What did I do wrong? I jumped a story or something? Hang on here. Lack of food. Let's keep going here. It's just stunning, isn't it? Just malnourished and skinniness. So normally they would describe it as emaciated. That's the proper terminology, right? So why would they use the word skinniness? And similar events observed in Arctic animals, including birds, seals, crabs, and fish. Emaciated crabs. Emaciated fish. I'm not laughing, that's the gallows laugh. In the whales, and similar events observed in Arctic animals, and birds, and seals, and crabs. Emaciated, malnourished, and skinny birds, seals, crabs, and fish. Emaciated crabs and fish. Wow. I'm just stunned. I'm literally just stunned by that observation from these people. That is like holy shit stuff. Yeah. Let's keep going. We're going to get through this. We're almost through this. For 15, 20 minutes or something, we'll be through it. I just got to last that long. 2 hours and a half. There might not be no show on Saturday. This might be the first Saturday in a month that I didn't do a show. I got a feeling I won't be able to move tomorrow. When I wake up tomorrow, when I finally go to bed tonight and wake up after the show, I'm going to bed. I bet you when I wake up, I won't be able to freaking move. Poor old body's not used to doing anything. They also noticed that many of the whales started feeding in areas such as San Francisco Bay, Los Angeles, Long Beach, where such behavior has never been seen before. They've never seen them feed in San Francisco's Bay, Los Angeles, Long Beach harbors. That's like an oh shit moment. That whole story is like an oh shit moment, isn't it? In the last 2 weeks, several gray whales observed in San Francisco Bay. There was 9. Yeah, 9 on a single day. We covered that earlier. A couple of them were emaciated. How can you have a couple emaciated? Right, they're all traveling together. How can a couple be emaciated? It doesn't work that way. If a couple are emaciated, they're all emaciated whales, okay? And he said the number of strandings on the coast is still low, just 7 in California, 1 in Washington. The annual average is 35. No, it's not. Post-Fukushima, the annual is over 35, but not pre-Fukushima, you piece of shit. You worthless scum, these people are. They really are worthless scum. And I apologize because I should be objective when I'm telling this story. But these lies just drive me insane sometimes. Because, like, you got so many of these stories. At what point do you accept the truth, see? What point will you accept that Fukushima is the catalyst? Friggin' idiots. Japan is just shit for brain country. United Nations is your biggest enemy. Your permanent enemy. Your parasitic enemy. Don't forget, I'll post this whole video unedited, which will be in 12 hours from the industry, up on my BitChute channel. Links are below to that. Because I'm not allowed to have another YouTube backup channel. They keep taking it down the minute I put it up. Food-stressed whales. Food-stressed whales. These people are really innovative. They probably got big bonuses, these scumbags. Food-stressed whales. Given their body condition. That was tough. That story, I got to save that story. That's an important story, that one. A lot of revelations in that story. Just give me a minute. I'll find the mink whale that spent several days in Long Beach Harbor died. Let me guess, emaciated. Just bear with me 1 second because yeah. I'll figure it out. Just give me a second here. That'll take me a second. Bear with me, please. I think I'm close. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Oh yeah, here we go. There we go, relabel it. There we go. I'll find it next time now. So this was a weird story. This was 25 pilot whales found dead near Marco Island. This one, I got quite a few of them, but this one was 2014, which is important, right? So necropsies performed on 8 whales showed all the animals had empty stomachs. The pilot whales all had empty stomachs. And the whales that died in the Everglades, there was 30 of them or something, they all had empty stomachs also. They were emaciated also, empty stomachs. And that's all the way up until 2017, the pilot whales in Australia, New Zealand, were typically described as emaciated or starved to death. But after 2017, 2018, I got to sneeze, hang on. Oh, we got no audio? Oh, shit. I'm sorry. How long was that? Did I have it turned off or something? Did I have the audio turned off very long? Let me just check the comment section. Sound. That's because I was coughing. How long was the audio off? Was it very long? I'll just wait till somebody tells me how long that was. That happens. 2 minutes? Shit. Well, let's go back 2 minutes. Which is basically back to this story, is it? 25 pilot whales, back to that. Yeah, thanks, James. Call it. Dana. Hi, everybody. I screw up sometimes, don't I? I did a lot of coughing tonight, so I've had to turn the volume off a lot. Okay, I'll go back to this story. We'll redo just these 2 stories because that's basically where I started, right? 25 pilot whales found dead near Marco Island. Was the audio on this story, folks? That died on Lover's Key on Monday. Tuesday showed all animals had empty stomachs. And then the 30 whales that died in the Everglades also had empty stomachs. And that mink whale, look at this that's clearly emaciated. Right, when you see that defined like a razor sharp, it's because there's no blubber there, right? All right, let's keep going here. We're almost through this stuff. Domoic acid. I just despise these people that take the lowest route possible. Where are so many whales dying in San Francisco Bay? We just covered that. They're not supposed to be in San Francisco Bay. And Buddy, one of the guys who was the authority, said some of the whales were skinny / emaciated. And so how can you have a couple of whales emaciated and the other one's not? How does that work? And they're not even supposed to be in San Francisco Bay. They're in there in desperation looking for food, right? Rare minke whale killed in San Francisco after being stranded where they don't belong, right? They're not supposed to be there in the first place. And like my stomach is kind of hurting from leaning, right? I was at working on the truck today for 5 hours. I never accomplished anything. It was just crazy. That's a little bit disappointing. I'll figure it out. That's just my first kick at the can. I'm a sucker for punishment, so I need time to heal up. I'm probably going to, like you say, I don't know. I'm not even going to try to think about it right now, actually. Just try to get through this with the sound on, hopefully. It's okay. It wasn't too long, right? The minke whale's death come after 3 dead gray whales turned up in San Francisco in less than 2 weeks, San Francisco Bay. Emaciated. At least they had the guts to call it emaciated. The other story wouldn't even call it emaciated. Female gray whale. It's unclear what killed the whales. They were emaciated. Well, we don't know what killed them. Yeah, but you acknowledge they're emaciated. Yeah, but we don't know what killed them. I don't mean they died because they were emaciated, Dana. It's impossible to like these people, isn't it? Emaciated whales. It's not clear what killed the whale, the authority says. 2 of the whales were in good conditions, minus emaciated. How can you have some whales are emaciated and the other whales are not? How does that actually work? Anybody? It doesn't work that way, see? Let's get through this. I keep thinking we're almost finished, and the stories never seem to stop. One had 6 fractured vertebrae, likely due to being struck by a passing vessel. Well, it doesn't mean they were alive when it was struck, though, does it? They're not supposed to be in the bay on top of that. Thousands of sea lions, dolphins, whales, sick or dead. California. This is not domoic acid you're looking at. This is severe emaciation. Sea lions, a healthy sea lion has ample blubber and it has no wrinkles. Harmful algae blooms. Domoic acid. Maybe there's dinosaurs living down there and they're killing the animals, right? Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe a Sasquatch is down there beating them with sticks or something. White killer whale spotted in Japan. Any creatures in Japan is rare now. Horrors of 4th great white shark washes up in Adelaide, which is Australia? Yeah, Australia beach. 4 in a row, great white sharks washing up on the beaches. And he was alive, that one in particular, I guess, by the sounds of it. They put it back in the water, and apparently then it just came back in and died. It looked like it was pretty sick, he said. A week after other sharks were found washed up on the shores of different beaches in South Australia. That guy is emaciated. And the reason some of these species, not just because of lack of food, but because they have radiation poisoning. They can't uptake any nutrition anymore, see? People fleeing wildfires down here in the winter. Wildfires in the winter. And he said the earth is perched. Right, this is what they're saying here where I'm to. The earth is perched. Even though it's winter, the earth is dry as a bone. Because it can't suck up water anymore. You don't have the biota, you don't have the fungus, you don't have the bacteria, you don't have the species in the ground anymore because the radioactive fallout sterilized everything in increments over the last 14 years and the last 80 years in particular. But we had a pulse event 14 years ago called Fukushima. Another dead whale washes on Vancouver Island shore. This was a rare Bryce whale. And James Lewis had actually put a song out a few days ago about this. I'm pretty sure that's what it was all about. But look at the peanut head. The whale's emaciated. That's undeniable emaciation. When you see the peanut head, you can't. That shouldn't exist. And you can see his rib cages too. He's emaciated. Severe emaciation. And the primary feed on plankton. And plankton is the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. There's a lot of big whales that are dependent upon the plankton. And they're all showing up emaciated. Gee, I wonder what could be going on. Boo. We're afraid people may group the recent strandings of gray whales together with this. What does gray whales feed on? You know, plankton. I got nothing to do with each other, Dana. And they're running out of energy. Look at this. She says the leading theory for gray whales is they're simply running out of energy and food. You don't run out of energy, you run out of food. Then you run out of energy. Right, they put it backwards on purpose, see? The Bride's whale found this week on North Vancouver Island half the size of a typical adult / emaciated. When you see the defined section there, and you can see the spine sticking up, that's emaciation. That's severe emaciation. Look at the peanut head right there. And look at the spine. Holy shit, man. That should be really healthy, thick blubber. And they've never seen before in British Columbia waters. 2 gray whales wash up dead on the BC coast in less than a week. Look at the emaciated back of that whale. Holy shit. That's a gray whale, I think. Yeah, that's a gray whale. Look at that. Holy frig. Wow. That's Tofino. I used to live there one time, a long time ago. Oh, last story. Holy shit, we made it. 2 hours and 50 minutes almost. Time to get through this now. We'll be up close to a 3-hour show. That's cool though. We got through it. Because I already got another folder I'm starting to fill up. Bear with me here. Second dead gray whale in less than a week washes up on Vancouver Island. We've done our research expeditions I showed you earlier. That was British Columbia and Vancouver Island. The cause of death is unknown for the emaciated whales, as usual. Some whales are literally starving to death. Yeah, when I turn the volume down to cough or drink water, and I always I got this habit of always keeping my finger on it, so I'll turn it back up, right? But sometimes I got to use both hands because I got a nasty hack, and it's those times when sometimes I might not turn it back on. I'm ecstatic we made it through. Holy shit, that was rough. Normally this is pretty. These shows are always rough on me, eh? I just hate. I don't mind collecting. I just hate telling the story because it reminds me of the research expeditions, you know. I showed that stuff earlier. Look, that's emaciated. They're starving to death. Not some whales. That's what's going on. The whale die-offs, the mass species. We've never seen nothing like it. We have no way of comparing it. I started to yawn now. I'm probably sleeping. I'll be sleeping 10 minutes. No, I won't be that quick, I guess. Half an hour I'll be in bed asleep. I got a feeling I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm not going to be feeling very good. I'm busted up. I still had a good day though. I done the best I could. I learned a bunch of lessons today. I'll figure it out. I'm not very good at giving up, but I'm not very healthy either. So just got to do it smarter next time, right? But I picked up a bunch of stuff yesterday, and James Lucid donated another 300 and covered those costs. Bless your heart, man. And that picture is insane, eh? Let me just delete all of this stuff so the next show will be easier for me to get started. Go back to that picture. That is insane. Peanut head, ribs are sticking up, shoulder blades are sticking out. It's severe emaciation. That's a Belgium. James put up a really nice song last night. We're going to play that tonight. I want to play Nuclear Belgium, but he put up a really good song last night. I'm going to play it because it's a really cool song. Small Modular Reactor Voodoo, right? And he touches upon... Oh, we're on the wrong screen. He touches upon a very important thing. Because this industry is a psycho... Nuclear is a psycho industry. These people are insane. And small modular reactors don't even exist, but yet it is displacing any kind of renewable energy because the industry is only not acknowledging, but is pumping out of the technology that doesn't even exist. Maybe we'll play two of the songs. Maybe we'll play this song and then we'll play, because I really want to hear Nuclear Belgium again. This song here. So we're going to play Small Modular Reactor. We're going to do a double song for this show tonight. They're two very important songs. And because we had a whole bunch of stories on Nuclear Belgium, I just want to hear it again. I know what you're saying. Dana, shame on you. It's true. We're going to do a double hitter tonight. We're going to play James' recent song, Small Modular Reactor Voodoo. And so bear with me when this song is over. And then we're going to play Nuclear Belgium for a closing song tonight. Because that's the right thing to do. I really like the song. It's just something about it. I find it's a real appealing to a large crowd. I can see... I'm like that sometimes with music, where if it's a really good... I can see how it can appeal to a long crowd. And it's been playing in my head again all night tonight too when we're doing the show. So I'm a bit selfish, but we're going to play this song first. I'm just going to set the timer for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And then we'll start the next song right after this. So hang around, you're going to enjoy it. If you never heard it before, you're going to love it. And this song is fantastic. The graphics are incredible. James's graphics are just wow stuff. I don't like saying that because I don't want to put pressure on him to try to always produce it. I understand that how much you can't get it right every time, even though he's exceptional. What he's doing is exceptional, man. Hugs for everybody. Make sure you give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. And after the two songs, this song and the next song, I'm going to come in and close the poll down. All right, here we go. Don't forget, there's two songs now. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I don't think I'll be back Saturday. I think I'll be back on Sunday, but I could be Saturday. You never know with Dana. Hugs for everybody. Have a great day. If that's possible. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.
docks where the cattails wilt and the rails turn black. Stamped the report, signed it blind. Now they bury the dead with the deadline. SMR voodoo, SMR voodoo. They light it up, then leave the state. SMR voodoo, SMR voodoo. Meters running, it's too late. Blueprint gospel, corner cut him. White collar choir shouting, plug it in. No room left in the vault for doubt, so they filed it away with the reactor out. They drew the charm on a federal form, sold it dressed in a federal grant. Their stocks run hot on the climate stage, but the waste gets dumped where the checks bounce twice. SMR voodoo, SMR voodoo. Shake that line and mark the ground. SMR voodoo, SMR voodoo. They'll build it up and melt it down. Who gets paid? The hidden file. Who gets burned? The drainage mile. Who holds truth? The taped over chart. Who bears weight? The softest part. First floor. Sign the sheet. Keep it running. Pray your grid don't speak. SMR voodoo, SMR voodoo. Break that core and salt the site. SMR voodoo, SMR voodoo. You're about to spin, now pay the price. You keep the power, but lose the light.
"100 hands, reverse the law. Phase 1 set, now put on pause." They claimed the grid could not endure and fed the myth of power pure. The fuel was buried, not the plan. It only waits for votes to stand. From all they stacked the vessels deep. Hands ran long though did not sleep. No chant was sung, no grave was raised. Just softer lights in western bays. A farmer passed through fields unclaimed. No one asked what wasn't named. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots cast, the elite's decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. They wrote it down in 23, then turned the page before the plea. The pause they pitched became a door, a lease renewed without a floor. The mask was spun in policy, but no one asked the river's fee. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots cast, the elite's decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. Now tell the child in Malta Day what steams beneath the concrete base. Dessels, drums, and Toomey lie, and NATO carries what we weigh. The wind from Flanders bends its back. The scaffold stands, but none look back. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Bye.